Hi, this is our house, and this is my yard tour movie. I built this rock wall pretty much all by myself. And let me see, the pansies always make me think of my mother-in-law, Cecilia Zotkins. I can never really grow pansies, but these have lasted for a while. There's our house. Oh, and lilacs, which always make me think of my childhood in Pemberville. We've already had magnificent daffodils here, but they're done. So now we have maidenhair ferns, which grow wild here in Minnesota. And they're named after a girl, Maidenhair. This whole hillside of stripy hostas we got from our kid's babysitter, who is now long gone. She lived across from us on Stickney Street, Marie Lefevre. And we think they're pretty fancy. Let's see, what else do we have here? A bunch of crabapple trees, a giant spruce tree around the corner a little bit here. There it is, the giant spruce tree. Most of our yard is very shady. John built this little garden. More pansies, bleeding hearts. The red stem fern, which we got originally from our neighbor, another Marie. I had to pause to swat a mosquito there. John and I love to argue about this plant, which is called bouncing bet, and which invades everything. He thinks that's fine, and I don't. These are the wood phlox. Here's the beautiful wild Solomon seal, the lady's mantle, which always makes me think of my sister-in-law, Jan Zotkins, and the nice little yellow hostas I got from Lynn Rabbits, one of my very dearest friends. So here's another view of the front yard. These are oak trees and locust trees, because we live in the oak savanna, or what was once the oak savanna. More of those nice little yellow hostas. The further back hosta here, I have always called the feminist hosta, because I got it at the Minnesota Now silent auction many years ago, and it sure has done well in our yard. I hope you can hear in the background all the birds that are singing like crazy. We're coming up on the Wheelgepero garden for the fairies. This is one of many gardens John has made around the yard. He usually likes wild things, and a lot of the wild things in the yard are due to John. The maidenhair in here is wild, of course, but the violets. First we have purple violets, and then we get really nice white violets, and those are either totally wild or may have drifted over from our wonderful neighbor Marie's yard. This part of the behind the crabapples. This was wonderful with lots of, what do we call that? Darn. I don't remember what you call this stuff. Pulmonaria, lungwort. These beautiful pink and blue flowers in the spring. Wild geraniums, which originally came from Carol and Ellis Dye. And over here, one of the nice secrets, you come around the corner from the big spruce. And what do you see? A whole bunch of Herman flowers. Aren't they cute? And behind them, More hostas from the dyes. I think they gave me one clump of these, which has now expanded to about 400 clumps all over the yard. Our millions of ostrich ferns also came from Marie Lefevre originally. They spread very well, sometimes too well. Lilies of the valley were here when we moved to the house. These are hepaticas, which John got from his friend Sandy, so another woman to whom we owe a huge debt. A lot of our wild things, probably the ginger beyond it, came from Sandy originally too. Those are all wild and native in Minnesota. I've gotten quite fond of this little ground cover, which is called Creeping Jenny. And I do think it's kind of sexist of me to like the Creeping Jenny more than the Creeping Charlie, but there it is. I built this little garden with bricks that are sort of historic, I think, from Lilydale. And some Jacob's ladder, some tiny iris, and many other wonderful things. Oh, I think the tiny irises were from the dyes also. Here's a pretty nice view of the rest of our front yard. Front of the house, down to the garage. Let's go look at the wheelbarrow garden. Okay, here we are on top of the hill in the front yard. And the fairy garden is only a few years old, and this is the early part of the summer. If you see, we do have a tiny chair in which a tired fairy could sit. The little candelabra behind her. And a pine tree seedling from the yard, which has been bonsai'd based on an internet video. It needs to be a little more bonsai'd. And mouse ears hosta, some alyssum, and this nice Korean rue is from the neighbor. And beyond that, this nice strip of garden leading up to the front steps. Marybells have taken over. Tansy that does really well later in the summer. Some daffodils. There's going to be some turtlehead. These little pink geraniums are very popular and also found many, many places through our yard. Okay, the rest of this top garden is partly full of John's blueberry bushes, which now the birds sometimes even let us have a few blueberries after it's been here for probably 15 years or so. And the beautiful columbines, which are another gift from John's mother. I think she brought the seeds with her when they immigrated from Europe. They grew in her yard for many, many years, and now they've grown in our yard, wherever they want to, for many, many years. These tiger lilies were a gift from our friend Amy Fancook long ago, along with many phlox that she had growing with those in her yard. And we have really loved them. They're not blooming yet, but they will. One of my favorite small corners here, this is a royal fern in the background. And next to it, a jack in the pulpit, which John has nurtured all over the yard. Moving on from the front door, this is the Japanese garden, which I created after reading up a lot on very detailed rules for Japanese gardens, of which I followed a few of the rules. Let's go closer. Okay, this is actually modeled after the Confucian virtues. I know it's Japanese and Confucianism isn't, but what are you going to do? There are 5 rocks here which stand for the 5 Confucian virtues. And this very small rock is fidelity. This large rock is justice. Moving along a little bit. Here's 2 rocks. The one on the right is gentleness, and the one on the left is wisdom. There's some really nice sedum and goat's beard. European ginger, Buddha. I'm sure Buddha is fine with the Confucian virtues. And this fifth rock is called Benevolence. Ha. There's some Korean angelica back there that's also drifted over from the neighbors. We love it when things drift over from the neighbors. There's Japanese ferns, which I learned about from Lynn. Rabbits. This little garden, I've always called the Peace Garden because it's supposed to be peaceful. And in memory of my mother, Peace. It's got Christmas ferns, wood ferns. Way in the back there's one interrupted fern. A few weeks ago it had beautiful wild bluebells. And these in the middle are wolf's bane, which makes me think of my daughter Cece, who loves everything magical. Has other names too, like aconite. Moving up from the Peace Garden, we have John's rain garden. I think this is his second rain garden, or maybe third, which really does help with the erosion when the water comes whooshing down the drain pipe there. Over here is a little garden that Cece made when she was, I think, in high school. And one notable feature is the 2 mushroom logs, which we've added recently. The farther back one grows oyster mushrooms, and the closer one grows shiitake mushrooms. So that's kind of the front yard. John's ewes. Now we'll move to the backyard. Stubborn little white bleeding heart that I tried to move from the rocks, but it doesn't want to move. When we moved in, this whole northern passage was completely dead, bare dirt. And now with, let me see, ferns from Marie, Virginia waterleaf, probably from John, a lot of shrubs from John, cinquefoil, no, not cinquefoil, what do you call that stuff? Celandine poppies that I think drifted over from Marie. And earlier in the year, Dutchman's britches that John planted. It is a pretty lush place. Well, he just installed this air conditioner too for the basement. These are some of John's shrubs going along the back fence, and the fence itself, which was here when we moved in 25 years ago, is kind of wonderful. John has shorted up many times with the cross planks. The birds love this, the chipmunks love this, everybody loves that fence. And this is John's first rain garden. It still has very nice wood phlox. Earlier it had absolutely glorious bluebells. It has some sensitive ferns and other good things. Some jack-in-the-pulpits coming. This is a garden I planted of mostly astilbes now, or at least astilbes is what are doing well here. It's a chair John often sits on to contemplate the universe. We're going to walk down around the corner here in the backyard. Oh, let's do the big view of the backyard. There's our deck, we'll get there later. Vegetable garden down below. Today is the second day of mosquitoes, so I have to pause every once in a while to slap one. The Dame's rockets, another plant named after a girl, which also just drifted over. I made this garden 2 years ago maybe with lovely Buddha from Kent and Tom. And some of the mini hostas in our yard. We had to put them somewhere. This is also a brand new garden. Hasn't come to much so far. This garden we made early on was all full of buckthorn saplings and seedlings. And it took years and years to get rid of most of the buckthorns. They keep coming back. But pretty nice now with the little geraniums from Lynn Rabbits. The beautiful statue that my sister Judy gave me. A woman dipping water from the river. And lots of things that will be more glorious later. Way down there and behind is the compost pile and the rhubarb patch. It's a really pretty iris we got also from Marie Lefevre. And over here, the vegetable garden. And some flowers in front of it, of course. On the right, down here, are the straw bales we're experimenting with this year, which always makes me think of my dad. Growing in these straw bales are tomatoes, peppers, and behind the peppers are pickling cucumbers. And more peppers, eggplants, some green onions, some garlic. There's just a million things growing in the vegetable garden. The beans, more tomatoes. We got a lot of heirloom tomatoes this year from a work friend of John's. There's some basil back there. This plant in the foreground will look like pink cotton candy flowers later. And it's called Queen of the Prairie, another female name plant. And Veronica. Does Veronica count as a plant named after a woman? I would think so. Just to look at the far end of the vegetable garden with the robins singing. We've been eating a lot of this romaine lettuce and some of the other salad greens behind them already. This arbor was a fun project that we inherited the trellis itself from the neighbors, and with the kids' help we painted it. Cece once called our place Egret's View, so we painted that up there. It's never really caught on though. And then the medieval virtues to match the front yard Confucian virtues. European virtues are listed with a little editing. They're perseverance, faith, hope, charity, prudence, and fortitude. I know I took out chastity because it was too hard to explain chastity to all the little neighbor kids who were walking by and asking if it applied to marriage, for instance. So we just took chastity out. And some other nice things. Visiting egret. The Queen of the Prairie is a pretty great plant. Let's go look at that. Oh, I called it Queen of the Prairie, but it's really prairie smoke. It's another native to Minnesota plant that is really cool. Later on there's little tendrils of smoke that come out from each flower. These iris, which were even more glorious a week ago, were inherited from a woman in the Southeast Seniors Block Nurse Program who needed to move into a nursing home. I was really happy to know that somebody would appreciate her precious iris in a different setting. So I think of her every time I look at these. Up there we have one more special garden, the one in the front John built last year, I think. We're always trying to work with these slopes in our yard to reduce the erosion, etc. And these are plants he got from his friend Sandy. Zigzag goldenrod, ligularia, some strawberries, and I've just planted in the front a native called hoary vervain. I should have mentioned these two huge bushes, amalanche, which we call Juneberries. Some people call them service berries. They're all done flowering, but later they're going to have wonderful berries we'll make into jam. And the birds will eat as many as they possibly can. And it has beautiful orange flowers in the fall. John planted another one over there behind this locust tree. And those two have been with us all the years we've been here. They're really wonderful. This aster, which will flower in the fall, is called Alma Puchki, so it's named after a woman, Alma. Ha! Okay, we're going to do a little side trip up to the back door and the deck. This beautiful, huge hibiscus plant we've actually had for many years. Inherited a tiny version of it when Alice and Amy, old friends, got married here in our yard. Let's see, it must have been about 23 years ago now. It's really been a huge part of our lives ever since. And here we have Bonnie's little herb garden of the year. Kinds of wonderful things. I was really excited to get alpine strawberries for the deck so we could eat these extra delicious tiny berries. Just a random pot. Salvias just for the hummingbirds. These two plants, which Americans call oleander, we call leander because they are all grown from the plants raised by John's parents, the Zotkins of Cleveland, who carried them all the way up to their attic every winter. And from here there is a wonderful view of other things in the yard. Of course, world's greatest bird feeder over there. It's just a very plain flat one, but we can see it from the kitchen window, and pretty constant visitors there. Down there, the barbecue pit that came with the house that John has filled with raspberry plants, and then a volunteer mountain ash grew in there, which the birds really love those, even though they're kind of shading out everything else. John's little garden with the bird bath I got him for his birthday a few years back, which is doing wonderful. Down there is where John chops wood. More straw bales, we'll look at those later. The wood shed, where Cece painted the word peace in many, many languages. The mushroom bed. The new garden, and rain garden number 2, and other things we'll go look at more closely. Here's the under the deck view. Several picnic tables, Bonnie's little potting area. It's a good place to be when it's raining or too hot. Frances Williams hostas, also named after a woman, I think. Okay, here's the other part of the straw bales experiment. This one has yellow patty pan squash and zucchini in it with some marigolds and one little parsley. I don't know, it might have gotten too wet. It seems like it's going to completely rot before the summer is half over. We'll just have to see. A big dock, which we both think we should pull out, but really kind of like it because it's large. That's where John chops a lot of wood. It's the other straw bale, which is butternut squash. Not looking too good. Don't know if it got too wet or too much fertilizer or something. Some rosemary, which I bonsai'd but hasn't fully recovered. And a sequoia tree that Cece brought John when she was living in California. It's gotten about 5 times bigger than it was originally. Kids used to swing from this oak tree. I used to have a tree house in this oak tree, but weeping willow tree. Kids used to swing here, and we used to have a tree house here, but huge pieces of it have fallen off in various storms. We still love it. And this is another one of John's gardens. We try not to get possessive about their gardens, but I am. And so he has Aphrodite hostas, our beautiful wild oxeye daisies, some columbines, some epimediums, a lot of cool stuff in here. This was the stump the kids would fly off of when they were on the rope swing. Beyond that is a cranberry bush that's doing really well this year. Here are the raspberries starting to flower already. And more raspberries, the cranberry bush. But over this fence, we partly liked this fence when the kids were little because it's quite hilly, and we thought it would keep them in. Certainly keeps me in because it's a little too high to get over. But there's many wonderful things over here in the wild territory. Big piles of brush, which all kinds of creatures love. All kinds of other wild things. The hillside drops down. We own the land here, quite a bit over the edge of the fence here. There's the edge of the fence right there. And often turkeys come and roost in these trees at night, so we can wake up with the turkeys. And way back there is Pig's Eye Lake, which is a wide part of the Mississippi River, kind of a backwater that has a host to millions of birds all seasons of the year. Lots more big oak trees and other wonderful stuff. And John does a lot of things down there, but I don't know what it is because it's some mystery land. Okay, so here's the view from the back part of the yard towards the rain gardens, the garage, back around to the front of the house. A lot of piles of leaves. We won't tell the story about how we almost burned the house down there. But we didn't. Everything's fine. The logs that might end up hosting more mushrooms. This little tree, part of it burned, was one of the kids' McDonald's trees. McDonald's was giving out tiny trees that were about 4 inches tall at one point, and this one's done really well up until the almost burning. The next tree grew here, but the one on the other side was also a McDonald's tree and has done very well, very tall now. This is our newest garden with all kinds of native things in it, especially to attract the bees. John went to a class on bees. The bare spots that are not mulched, we hope will grow some lupins. John planted lupin seed in there. One of our first joint projects, by the way. Usually we do better when we do our separate projects. This is gonna grow all kinds of wonderful wine cups mushrooms in the fall. John just built it this year. Back there is a magnificent rain garden. So this rain garden is a few years old now. And it has a lot of things that butterflies like. Well, everybody likes everything about this garden. What can I say? The bleeding hearts have done really well. Up above is the honeysuckle that we planted that's very popular with the hummingbirds. The cardinals have nested in there almost every year. And this is the Bonnie's white garden, where almost everything is white. So we have the white bleeding heart, the artemisia. This white clematis was spectacular 2 weeks ago. But it was raining all the time then, so I couldn't get out to make movies. It's going to be a clethra. Just planted some white cosmos. There's a beautiful white iris called Immortality. It was earlier in the season. There were pussy toes growing there. Some dianthus, which, okay, they have a tiny bit of pink in them. The Palace Purple Heuchera has white flowers. There's a nice white astilbe, which might be Deutschland or Rhineland. It's going to be a white phlox. Okay, and one more garden. Over here, some nice rose that has done very well despite our not being willing to use pesticides. In this garden we kind of redeveloped last year because it was just getting too wild. So these clematises are growing like crazy. And up there, John built a bat house. We don't know if any bats go sleep in there or not, but we hope so because they eat these doggone mosquitoes. Wild grape. I'm thinking maybe I could make some grape jelly. And total wild everything. We keep putting more official things in there, but I've not succeeded yet. And this is a purple suede vest that from my hippie days that I found while renovating the basement. It would cost way too much to dry clean, so I washed it and I may have destroyed it, but Johnny's girlfriend Gracie may be able to use it in the upcoming performance of Hair. And as we move back from the backyard to the front steps, front door, there's one nice little garden. Kent and Tom gave me this beautiful copper bird bath. And all these flowers have proved pretty darn reliable. Early in the spring there were beautiful deep blue scilla flowers all over. Later there will be more catmint, creeping astilbe, and morning glory flowers up against the wall here. Oh, who's that? There's a little bird over there. I don't know who that is. Maybe John will recognize. We definitely have loud things. And we have blue-gray gnatcatchers. I think nesting in our yard this year. This is the basement door. The steps up to the front door. not that impressive walk, but maybe we'll put another pot in here sometime. If you go up there, I will make you a cup of tea and a big hug. Bye.